Whoa, no, 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 no. How you be, hairless mings of the blue sea? It's me, I'm back. It's been a couple of weeks. How's everybody doing, man? Y'all know what time it is, man. That fire dropped. I was actually up for once when it dropped instead of waking up to it, which is fine, but it's nothing like that hot off the press, live, fresh read. Then you get time to go back to sleep, wake up and reread it again and kind of see if you still feel the same way you did, right? And 1006 was fire, man. Like we got a little setup, a little action, and a few things that I don't know if it's just maybe I didn't remember initially or it was implied and I just didn't notice, right? And I'll get into that a little later. First and foremost, as usual, we support the Viz here, obviously. If you can, do, and if you can't, hey, you know, your support is good enough, right? Just reading the series sometimes. Word of mouth is just as good as money. So don't feel bad about it, right? These times are interesting to begin with. The cover, this spread that we get, this magnificent, bountiful spread of supernova. We got your boy Eustace L. Mid on one side, of course, one of the most interesting people in the series, right? That's not a quote unquote main character, and the man of many secrets, who's still most of them have yet to be revealed. The master strategist, Trafalgar de Waterloo, and then man, of course, the king, the future PK, man, the MC, the phenom from Fuchsia. You already know what it is over here, man. Red Rock, Snake Man, Boundo Man, Monkey D, Luffy. It was a dope spread to me. And then right after that, the Animal Cracker and the Animal Cracker Pirates uh, with my man. One and you're done. One clap Kaido's front and center, man. Then we got Jack the Jobber and King and Queen and ex Drizzy Drakums and Black Maria, Who's Who, Ulti and Pei Pei. This is pretty cool. I think that's only the first or second panel we've seen with most of them right all on one page. I thought that was pretty dope. That's pretty dope. Of course, let's get into the chapter though. First off, right, as soon as we open up, we see Miss 48, Miss First 48 herself, Sir Snitch a lot, Bao Huang, and this apparently this ability to see through quote unquote cyborgs and whatever. I'm guessing the that mark itself, maybe it might be some weird ability similar to, imagine if Kinemon, or not Kinemon, if Conjuro was able to, like the way he's able to use the observation hockey, probably right, with his ink fruit to have creatures he draws be a spy, something of that note. I'm wondering if Bao Wong's power can do something similar, because we've seen it explained through the robots, but I'm sure maybe any creature or something that can see, if you give Bao Wong gives that marking to them, right? Because I don't know if it's I just assume it's a devil fruit ability, and I don't think it's a smile fruit because smile fruits have all been zones, and I can't think of a zone that would give you something like that. That's not echolocation, right? With your boy Batman, something like that. But I don't know, the fact that she's able to see inside Yamato's clothes to see that Momonosuke is there. I feel like if this was a tech ability, that means we've reached oh boy, we've reached the level in One Piece where tech has scouters have entered the fray. Hopefully that's not the case because we definitely don't need that at all. But um, it might be something, if it's not just Bao Wang's ability, it might be a derivative of the technology that the pacifista have, which I'm going to bring up a little later because, like I said, it's something I overlook with Queen. And Momo is living his best life, like I've said quite a few times. Yeah, he got beat up and all that, but he survived. And, this guy, well, I keep calling him a guy, but for an 8-year-old, man, he's from traveling time to, his father being boiled alive and his people being enslaved in a sense, and all these things that a lot of older, right, characters wouldn't be able to endure the same way. So Momo's character development, I'm really looking forward to after Wano because of his experiences with these things, and whenever he reunites with Zunisha, I'm sure his grasp on whatever abilities he has, right, and then his command over Zunisha, all that stuff will come into play later. I know that's not about the chapter, but this chapter really didn't have a lot of high detailed stuff, so I feel like I can talk about a few things that relate to the characters and involve for later. Because let's not forget, Momo has a path that he'll end up eventually walking at some point, right? But I did think that that was interesting to be able to see under the clothes, and then where they're headed. I'm assuming Yamato has some sort of plan, right? Because I just Yamato's sense of direction, right? Being in places where other characters don't have access to because of information and who Yamato is, right? Probably being able to go wherever she wants most of the time, with some small exceptions. But I doubt there's any place on Wano that, or Onigashima for that matter, that Yamato wouldn't understand what's going on, right? Based on the fact that Kaido's using his weather manipulation powers and things of that nature, Yamato already knows the plan. Of course, Yamato also has Odin's journal, which I'm sure, due to her own understanding, she probably knows what exactly to do to make things difficult, that even Robin wouldn't know how to do, because it's not something that reading the polyglyphs would tell you what Kaido is on right now, right? And even Black Maria, who has made small little comments from the time that she entrapped Sanji to even a chapter or two ago, when Sanji finally cut loose, that she had somewhere to be, right? So I don't know if she's supposed to be on the rooftop too, and Black Maria wasn't surprised by Onigashima being lifted or anything, so I just have to assume her information is a little bit more than um, everybody else's. For whatever reason that is, it might be based on trust, right? I mean, it's Kaido. He probably doesn't really technically trust anybody. But at the same time, like I've said time and time again, the only thing that you could hurt on Kaido is his plans. I doubt he feels threatened in any way, shape, or form to himself. Just his plans, right? So for Kaido to trust Black Maria with the task of retrieving the only person in the series who can interpret polyglyphs, I just feel like I would have to think that his trust in Black Maria is probably a lot higher than the rest of them, right? Because I'll get into that in another video, actually, because there's a lot I want to talk about with this whole plan with Robin, not as a character, but just Robin's role and what these other groups are going to try to do, and one or two may successfully do this, and that's take hostage Robin. But we all know how that's going to end. It's not going to end well for anybody. It might be one of the few times we see in the series where Luffy gives the okay, we're quote unquote murder, because after in his lobby, man, him losing a crewmate, he's just not, he's not having it. But anyway, I know everybody wants to get into Marco and King and all that, and I'm going to get to that. But something that I want to talk about Queen first, because the Hyogoro stuff, that's nice. We get some Master Roshi, Lao G, any of those type of characters, right? Older men who are on the brink. I don't want to bring up Silvers, obviously, because Uh, Silver's. Yeah, was that his name? Remember when in Hunter x Hunter when oh man, I forgot Killer was Pop's name. Oh my god, I got to reread that series again. But when they fought Krollo in the room, right? All the men in anime and manga usually, or even Netero for that matter, um, right before they know it's time for them to go, right? That's when you see whatever power remnants they had left over from their prime. And for Hyogoro, it was to turn back into what he looked like previously, right? I don't think he's gonna die, and I say that because I'll have to wait. Obviously, there's like 4 or 5 panels that have some statements that I do want to wait for the viz on because the context of that statement could mean a lot. And with Hirogoro, it's a statement about finding a protege. Now, for him to refer to Luffy as his protege already, even though he only taught him for a small amount of time, I feel like you wouldn't. I think you wouldn't feel that. I don't know what the word is. Fulfilled by teaching one. Even though this is an important person that's helping you free your country in a sense, I don't know. I just think he has more to do than like he just taught Luffy Ryo. The ability to use Ryo. I don't know. I just don't think he's gonna die. And then the fact that he's not even using any Rio attacks is odd, and that might be just because he has barely enough power left just to um, retain his original form. Maybe that's what this ice virus is doing to him, or that's as far as even though he's quote unquote in his old form again. There's probably a cap on him because he's still old as dirt, you know. So it might be because of that, which is fine. I just don't think it's not even just because this is One Piece or nothing. He just doesn't seem like somebody who's just gonna die so easily. Because if that was the case, why did he dodge Big Mom when he was training Luffy? If he wasn't, you know what I mean? It just kind of doesn't make any sense for him to just die all of a sudden now, when he had plenty of opportunity and the impact of him helping wouldn't be any different than now, right? Because yes, he's helping provide security so Chopper can finish the job, so to speak. But they don't need him there just for that. They have enough fighters there for that. So I just want to get that out there real quick about Hiragoro, why I don't think he's dying. And obviously, I skipped something important. Y'all know I'm not always chronological by any means. A lot of times it just depends on how much I have to say on each subject, right? I try to save the long stuff for the end so it can have some kind of continuity, or at least the illusion of continuity. Your boy, and if y'all remember when that chapter came out about a month and a half ago, and it's something I said more than once, all right, about Peril Sparrow, y'all keep sleeping on Pedaline. The only thing I don't like about him, besides the tongue thing, is his he seems rather Hisoka-ish, if you know what I mean, with the candy and all that. But as far as his abilities, his actual ability with the candy, we know is strong, right? We already know. One of the reasons why I figured Wanda and Carrot weren't going to win in the first place was because remember when I was talking about how Luffy, even in Gear Third, couldn't break through the candy wall just with one try. He didn't at all because he didn't have time to. Obviously, he was ducking and dodging a certain character, but he couldn't break through the candy wall. So that to me told me like, okay, not just him surviving the explosion, but I doubt either Wanda or Carrot for that matter could sustain any, even a half-powered Gear Third, Giganto, anything from Luffy. They're probably going to sleep. So, like I had said before, unless they have extreme precision with their speed, they were probably that was going to be an L, and that's exactly what happened, right? Because let's not forget, he's still a commander. He's not Katakuri. We don't know anything about Smoothie because she never does anything, right? But you can't just. He has to be stronger than Oven, and I think Oven would have clapped them in Sulong too, just because Oven was a bit more competent with his abilities, and he was just overall a bit more competent than some of the other big mom pirates that we've seen, like even the side ones, right? Um, so to me, it wasn't that big of a shock. He didn't kill them, which I thought, for how Peril Sparrow acts, he seems a bit more menacing. To where even someone like Fodder, he just would probably kill them, but he didn't. Which I think we know that that's not. It's not a good idea in this series. You don't leave anybody alive, right? That's just not a good idea. It's backfired on almost every character so far when they let someone live. Something happened later, right? Even with Kaido, letting Luffy live was probably his biggest mistake. Just based on how things go in the series, and we've even seen with even Marineford, if they're being smart, they just say screw what Shanks has to say. We have to kill Blackbeard now, but they don't, and we see what's going to happen later with that. Not killing characters is usually a bad idea, but that's not how this series is driven. So I just thought it was interesting that even Peril Sparrow, I don't know, maybe it's an arrogance thing, right? Like, oh, well, it was both of you, Sulong or not, you still. This is because here's the thing, right? I already know how people are because they're going to latch on to the fact of what he said about, well, basically, if the weather hadn't changed, I was going to lose. Um, he seems a bit dramatic, right? So I don't even think he believes that. Probably would have been a bit harder, but I don't know. At no point was I worried about Peril Sparrow. Um, that's not disrespect to the mink. It's just that those two aren't really that. They're not a representation of how fierce the mink can be. They're female mink for one. There's only 3 or 4 characters in this entire series as female that you can say that they're strong, and no one can contest that argument. None of the mink fall in that category so far. So that alone, and then they just all they have is Sulong, right? Electro is cool, but that probably doesn't do anything to Candy. It just doesn't, and clearly he has access to hockey. So I don't know. I just didn't have any hope for them. Um, but his interest now in Marco is a different story. Um, we finally see in this chapter something from Marco, and that's his abilities being more physical based, like, and actually causing physical damage, because we haven't really seen that, right? From the 1 or 2 times that we've seen Marco fight, because we didn't really see the payback war. We just saw the results. So I'd have to assume that it's not like Marco learned these attacks just for this war. This is probably stuff he used in the Blackbeard fight. It just didn't matter because it's Blackbeard and he has 2 fruits. Although, from the way it looks like, okay, he's fighting 2 commanders simultaneously. But I don't think he can keep this up, right? And that's not just because Peros said he's looking worn. He's, oh, he looks worn out. It's not even just because of that. You're fighting two mythic. You're fighting two mythical zones, right? Or ancient zones. Zones, nonetheless, top tier zones. Their regeneration, I would have to assume, is on the same level as Marco's. So if they're all 3 of them are continually finding ways to regenerate during the fight, eventually they'll wear Marco down. Maybe it takes longer than anticipated, but at some point, right, your hockey will run out and your stamina will decrease um, to a beatable point for 2 characters, right? Because even though it's the mink, right, Nekomamushi and Inarashi, regardless of their differences, right, they probably still would have had to tag in and out without Sulong. With Sulong, I think they probably would have beat Jack, and they wouldn't have had to take shifts like that if they were able to put their pride to the side, as they could now fighting Kaido. Um, they would have ended Jack. It probably would have took them a little bit more time, but just using that to me as a reference point pretty much can kind of tell you where you think Marco is and how long that would actually take. But in the end, I still think Marco might lose. He would have to flee, right, without help. But for the time being, that doesn't matter because he's out there capping and clapping. Hot shots for everybody. King caught a whole bunch of knee to I have no idea what part of the body, but for how fast he was traveling, that F equals MA is gets every time, right? And then we've seen Queen. This is what I wanted to bring up. And may just be an oversight on my part, but I didn't remember Queen having access to beam moves like Frankie or the passive Visa do. He might have used something, like I said, it just might be an oversight. I'm gonna have to go back and check, but I just thought it was interesting. Not really all that crazy, right? We see his robotic neck enhancements. Wow, that feels weird to say. But seeing his robotic neck enhancements, his engineered arm, right? And he's still Zoan with regeneration. So I don't even think um, Queen operating on himself is really that too far of a stretch, just because of the regen factor, right? So there could be other stuff that Queen. I'm almost certain Queen has some kind of death bomb, right? Queen seems like one of those characters to have a cell, type of situation where he just explodes virus everywhere. Or what was his name? Sazal Opero when from Bleach during the Wake of Mundo arc when he fought Mariyu Mariyuri Mayuri. Yeah, but those type of characters, right? Well, if I can't beat you, I'll just spread disease everywhere. Queen seems like that he's almost certain he has a disease bomb, like that he's hooked to his own heartbeat or some weird spawn situation like that. So I wouldn't even be surprised by that. And then even Apu is still running around. Not that big of a shock, right? And even I said this before in the chapter where Zoa got tired of the antics that characters within the tier just don't want to shot each other, And he almost made me go back on that statement. But, we see Apu's just doing what he does, surviving, I guess. Scratching and surviving. Good times. That's what he be on. Because he should be dead, by all accounts. Just because of what I think about Apu in the first place. But Apu is basically the supernova version of Buggy, right? Where how people you know, joke about Buggy and stuff. To me, Apu's like that same kind of character. Except for oddly enough, we've seen a little bit more from Apu than we've seen from Buggy. But they're to me they might as well be the same. It's just funny that he's still alive and kicking for now. But yeah, Queen using hyper beam on Marco in that area. I still wonder how this ability works. We know with Frankie, we assume it has something to do with his cola and recharge and stuff like that. The pacifists we're still not sure. It's just a lot of people, which I don't think they're wrong for thinking that way. And because I'm still not sure myself, is that the pacifista's beam ability is some derivative of Kizaru's fruit based on what you think about Vegapunk. And, I've talked ad nauseum about Vegapunk for I don't know how many chapters in Wano just because of their implications on the future of the story. And, you know, I think it's safe to say at this point that we're going to get Vegapunk soon, just because of who's involved in this war now and the important characters like Momonosuke and his connection to having the perfect version of a smile fruit with his dragon fruit, which since Kaido doesn't have a dragon fruit, this makes things even. That's something else to revisit too, right? Because for all this time, it's been well, Kaido has a dragon fruit, and his fruit's based on Momonosuke's fruit is based on Kaido. That was the thought process. But if technically he has a fish fruit that is a mythical, and all that other crazy stuff, what does that really mean about his fruit? Because we see the other smiles are copies of creatures that already exist in the series. And one of the reasons, like, I've thought why a zone has been used as the first fruit to be quote unquote copied is because it has to do with another soul being and or life force, however you want to word that, right, within the series. And that's why it hasn't been Paramecia or Logia, because for their technology now, you probably can't recreate elements, right? You can't recreate sand. You can't recreate being able to chill something because technically Aokiji is not the ice fruit, right? But you get what I mean. Same with Akainu. You can't recreate lava at this point of the story, and I don't think they're going to go that technical with it in the first place. But what you can do is reanimate corpses. We've seen that with Moria's fruit. We see how Big Mom's soul fruits interact with quote unquote creating sentient beings, right? That I just think if with Momo's fruit, and we know dragons exist, it has something to do, right, with killing a creature. Something to do with the creature, some bad, the One Piece version of transmutation circles, but for devil fruits. And that's why it works with smiles, I think, personally. Um, I just think the tie-in has more to do with the mythos of dragons in the series and how it's connected to Wano, and for dragons being feared in Wano, to have your new leader, um, and the only male that we know of that's alive bloodline of the Kozuki to also be a dragon is strange, right? And how will the people accept that? And there's a whole list of things that for the end of the series that changes a little bit and makes things odd to whereas why now does he have a dragon copy of a fruit if Kaido's not technically doesn't have a dragon fruit. He just is a dragon with a devil fruit. So it just makes things too weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that part, but that's just something I've been thinking about more and more with that situation. And where do I think this is going next chapters? Because there's no break. I don't think Hyogoro is dying, but I also don't think Chopper cures everything next chapter either. That's if we even go back to that, right? Um, we may go to Robin. We may go back to the rooftop. I don't think we go back to the rooftop for a while. And that's just because we're shown so much in the beginning and with the type of attacks that the Supernova was using in comparison to what Big Mom and one Kaido was doing. Um, we know it's not going to be enough. So I don't know if it'll be necessary for us to see all the adversity that the supernova have to endure, like every attack and all that. I don't think we need to really see all of that to understand that we know they're going to get clapped at some point. Even in this chapter, right? If you're thinking about the power scaling aspect, I still don't think, now that Marco's here, it's a little bit different. I've said this before. Nobody on this island is stronger than Odin. I know that's you're probably tired of hearing me say that, but that's the truth. So with that being the case, even if Marco is getting tired fighting two characters that one on one he could probably, I won't say easily, right, because of what their abilities are and stuff like that, but he could probably deal with either or just fine by themselves. Um, So that to me is just like, okay, well, if Marco can do that to them, why would the supernova, even though there's five of them, why would they be able to just overtake two Yonko when technically one is probably way too much for them? So I just think when we get back, it's just going to be in a feat endurance, right? The Supernova are basically in the same situation that the three Sannin were in against Hanzo the Salamander King. I really think that's kind of where this is headed because I just don't see it without infighting between Kaido and Big Mom. Um, I just don't. I don't know how they're gonna logically right win that fight. So I think more stuff has to develop in the story, either through Yamato or some other means, before we get back to the rooftop. That was my point for bringing that up. So I do think that we're going to go back to interactions with where Yamato's on their way to, maybe some cuts of, like I said, maybe what's going on with Robin and the Robin and Brooke and they're fighting the spider's lair, so to speak, and maybe what's going on with Jinbei. We've seen Sanji made a decision on which way to go, so we may see a meeting between Sanji finding the scabbard or Sanji running into Yamato before then. Who knows, right? Uh, the only other two characters that three, if you count quote unquote Orochi, whether he's alive or not, or in Kanjuro. The only characters we really haven't seen are Hiyori and Hawkins. So I think we've made, like within the past 8 to 10 chapters, we pretty much made our rounds of all the players, right? That's involved in this war right now, to include in Cipher Pole. So I'm still waiting on those two characters because I feel like until we see what those two have going on, um, it's going to be hard to get a complete picture of what's of everything that's going to happen for the rest of this war. So those are just my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the chapter like I did, and today's going to be a wild day of reckless talking because we got commanders getting clapped by one dude out here. One thing I hope it does though, because y'all know by now where my stance is about Admiral versus Yonko and all that silly stuff. I've been saying this entire time since I've read this series that there literally is no difference to me, with the exception being Fujitora, just because he's a lot newer and we don't know how long he's been strong for. The three original OG Admirals is pretty obvious where they stand, and Akainu and Aokiji have to be stronger just because they fought each other to the death, allegedly, basically to the death. So their hockey's both bloomed, and honestly, I don't think there's anybody on this island that could beat Akainu. I don't think I'm crazy for saying that either. If we're getting into the power scale and stuff, that's just how I think personally. Because the rest of these Yonkos haven't been in life or death situations in quite some time. They are the life death situation. So probably Blackbeard. I take that back. Blackbeard too. Because even though he plays around during his fights, he could have really died messing with Whitebeard. I think if Whitebeard just had a little bit more, he could have killed either, possibly both of them. But they both survived. So Bloom Hockey, we'll see. Um, Hope y'all staying safe out there. Enjoy your weekend, and y'all might actually hear from me tomorrow because I got some law stuff to talk about. Peace.